Thank you, Madam Clerk. I will call the meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. I'll start off by reading the land acknowledgement statement. We acknowledge with respect to history, spirituality, and culture of the Anishinaabe, the people of the Three Fires known as the Ojibwe, Odawa, Potawatomi nations, who have inhabited this land from time immemorial, and further give thanks to the Chippewa Saugeen, Chippewa Nawash, now known as the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, as the traditional keepers of this land. We also recognize the Métis and Inuit whose ancestors shared this land and these waters. May we all, as treaty people, live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship with all its diverse people. Is there any add-ons to our agenda here tonight? Seeing none, the recommendation is that the council agenda be approved as presented. Someone to move to put it on the floor, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlton, second by Councillor Barfoot. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, I'll show of hands, all in favor. The motion is carried. A declaration of peculiar interest, you can clear anytime you see fit during the meeting. Minutes of the previous minutes. The recommendation is that the minutes of the council meeting held on February 2nd, 2022 be adopted. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Pringle, second by Councillor Colburn. Is there any discussion on the minutes before us? The motion? See none, a show of hands, all in favor. The motion is carried. We have no announcements here tonight. We're down to public hearings. The recommendation is that the regular meeting of council of the, I'll start again. That the regular meeting of committee of the whole be recessed to host public hearing for the following zoning bylaw amendment application. Z0122 for Amanda Holder and Eli Vermille for property located at on a sign addressed Grave Road 17, and Z1721 for Blair and Cheryl Rodburn for property located at 130 Maple Ridge Road. Someone to move to put it on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Pringle, second by Councillor Colburn. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Show of hands, all in favor. Thank you. So I'm going to go to our first public meeting. This meeting has been called to consider zoning bylaw amendment application Z0122 for property legally described as concession 20, part lot 3, RP 16R 4491. Madam Clerk, please advise the method by which the notice was given.
Okay, apologies. Notice of this public meeting was given by ordinary mail to all property owners within 120 meters, 400 feet of the subject property, by email to all prescribed bodies on January 18th, 2022, posted at the subject property and posted on the Township of Georgian Bluffs website. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Township of Georgian Bluffs before the proposed zoning bylaw is adopted or passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the Township of Georgian Bluffs to the local planning appeal tribunal. The person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the tribunal unless, in the opinion of said tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to add the person or public body as a party.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Madam Planner, please proceed with your review of the application. Jen, are you there? There you are.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, everyone. So this application from Amanda and Eli is seeks to reduce the setback to the environmental protection zone from 15 meters to 3 meters, and to reduce the side yard setback from 10 meters to 3 meters for their property. The effect will be to create a development envelope wherein they can build a detached dwelling. No other relief to the bylaw was requested through their application. When we do a policy review to evaluate the merits of the application, we see that the property is located within, largely within a hazard area under the county official plan, and a small portion of that property is designated agricultural. That's where they're proposing to build the dwelling. Development is never permitted within hazard areas. So Appendix B to the County of Grey official plan does note the presence of other wetlands on the property. So because the property is in a rural area, there are no municipal services available. So it will be serviced by a private well and a septic system. Those will be designed and built in accordance with the Ontario Building Code. The provincial policy statement does permit development on private services. The Conservation Authority reviews applications in their review of their impacts to natural heritage features on behalf of the township. And so they did review the application and note that the natural heritage features identified include significant wildlife habitat and fish habitat. They note that a review of the Natural Heritage Information Center records indicate snapping turtle habitat within the wetland feature that's on the property. So they note snapping turtles are identified by the province as a species of special concern, and their habitats are considered a form of significant wildlife habitat. And they also expect that the wetland feature does provide for other unconfirmed forms of significant wildlife habitat, such as amphibian breeding habitat. They also note fish observations within the watercourse connected to the wetland feature, and development located outside of the EP zone is not anticipated to negatively impact that fish habitat. They do recommend the property owner contacting the Department of Fisheries and Oceans and the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry for further information regarding fish habitat. So the Conservation Authority pre-consulted with the applicants prior to this application being submitted, and they provided written comments and direction for potential development on the site. Their pre-consultation comments recommended development maintain a 3-meter setback to that EP zone boundary. And if that was the case, then they would not be requesting an environmental impact study be completed, as development within that setback was not anticipated to result in negative impacts. So when the application came forward, they reviewed the detailed site planning, grading and drainage plan, and that plan is indicating that the site grading would extend into that past that point that they had indicated it should not. So their comments indicate that that detailed design does not meet the intent of their recommendations, and they're determining, or they're concluding, that this application is not consistent with Section 2.1 of the PPS policies at this time. And they're recommending that any decision on this application be deferred until that matter has been addressed. They have reviewed the application as well through their delegated responsibility from the province to represent provincial interests regarding natural hazards identified in Section 3.1 of the provincial policy statement. They have identified that the natural hazards on this property include flooding and erosion hazards associated with the local wetland feature and flood-prone areas. They've also conducted a review of soils mapping, which indicates organic soils associated with the wetland feature. And organic soils are considered potentially hazardous for development due to their unstable nature. So the hazard areas associated with the wetland is included within the EP zone. And the findings of the soil analysis confirmed that a design bearing capacity could be met for the proposed foundation given the presence of inorganic soils at the test hole locations. As such, they are of the opinion that development as defined under the PPS is directed away from the hazard area, and the proposal in that regard is consistent with Section 3.1 PPS policies. Within the township zoning bylaw, the property is zoned agricultural and EP. What they're effectively applying for through this zoning bylaw amendment is a development envelope, and that development envelope that they've requested would be would have a 3-meter setback from that EP zone, as well as a 3-meter setback from the side yard. The property fronts onto Gray Road 17, and within our bylaw, there is a requirement for a 23-meter setback from the center line of the county road. The site plan that they provided indicates that the development would be about 25 meters setback from the center line of the county road. We did receive comments from the county transportation department and planning departments stating that all structures, even underground structures, need to be located outside of that setback. While the zoning bylaw does regulate the location of buildings, it does not regulate the location of septic systems. So that is something that would need to be addressed at the building permit stage. The comments that we've received to date on this application, the Gray Sauble Conservation Authority note, based on a review of the application and information circulated with it, the Conservation Authority recommends that the township defer the decision on the zoning bylaw amendment until a satisfactory site plan has been provided that addresses the above concerns. Please inform this office of any decision made by the township of Georgian Bluffs with regard to the subject application. We respectfully request to receive a copy of the decision and notice of any appeals filed. In their summary, they note the proposal is generally consistent with Section 3.1 PPS policies. Ontario Regulation 15106 does apply to the subject property. The proposal has not demonstrated consistency with Section 2.1 PPS policies at this time. And the subject site is not located within an area that is subject to the policies contained in the Saugeen Gray Sauble Northern Bruce Peninsula Source Protection Plan. The County of Gray Planning Department provided comments noting it is recommended that positive comments are received from Gray Sauble Conservation Authority regarding the proposed development and the circulated grading and drainage plan. The subject property is located on Gray Road 17, and the subject application has been circulated to the County Transportation Department. They have confirmed an entrance permit is required for the subject development. Furthermore, they have noted that the 75-foot setback, which is the 23 meters, is in effect for all structures, including underground structures. From the center line of the county road, it is recommended that all setbacks for all proposed structures be considered in this regard. The Risk Management Office note the property is not located within a vulnerable source protection area where policies apply, and they have no comments. Saugeen Ojibwe Nation provided the following comment. At this point, the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation's Environment Office does not have the resources to engage in consultation on this project. We have no further comments on this project. If at any point anything of archaeological interest is revealed on site, please contact the SON Environment Office immediately. We circulated the application to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject property, and we did not receive any written comments by the report submission deadline. So as the Conservation Authority has notified us that the application is not consistent with Section 2.1 of the PPS, it is just recommended that the application or the report be received for information at this time until the applicants have had a chance to amend their site plan to meet the requirements of the Conservation Authority. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that the council may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Planner. No members of the public registered with the clerk to provide comments in support of or in opposition to the application. The applicant is not present. Does council have any questions regarding the proposed application? Councillor Colburn, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Burley, and through you, if I may, to our senior planner. Part of the Conservation Authority's report recommends that we consult with the Department of Fisheries and Oceans and the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry. So is that a further action that our staff will be taking based on that recommendation from Gray Sobel?
That recommendation is for the property owner to consult.
So we won't be in any way overseeing that or getting those reports, or what is our role in that recommendation then? Just that we hope the applicants consult?
So the property is regulated by the Conservation Authority, and as part of their permitting process, they would ensure that the development isn't encroaching on those natural heritage or hazard features, and that would be where the requirement for any DFO or MNRF involvement to come through. The township staff don't have any jurisdiction to administer that. We don't have any powers within our zoning bylaw to enforce that. They haven't asked us, as part of the circulation on this application and their comments, they have not required or requested that we have a site plan agreement. So generally, where that is not the case, then there's no trigger for us to follow up on any impact to those features.
Okay, thank you, Jen, for that. Councillor Colburn, did you get your question answered? Welcome, Councillor Sullivan. Is there any other comments from council members? See none. I'll now call for a vote of the motion. I'm going to read the recommendation. Comments from the Great Sobel Conservation Authority note that the application is not consistent with the policies of section 2.1 of the Provincial Policy Statement 2020. It is recommended that the decision on zoning bylaw amendment application Z0122 for Amanda Older and Eli Vermele for lands described concession 20 part lot 3 RP 16R4491 part 2 be deferred until positive comments have been received from the Gray Sobel Conservation Authority. Someone to move to put it on the floor, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlson, second by Councillor Sullivan. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, a show of hands, all in favor? The motion is carried. I'll now ask for adjournment of this public hearing. Moved by Councillor Pringle, second by Councillor Colburn. A show of hands, all in favor of adjournment? We are now adjourned. So I'll move on to our second public meeting. This meeting has been called to consider zoning bylaw amendment application Z 1721 for property located at 130 Maple Ridge Road. Madam Clerk, please advise the method by which notice of this public meeting was given.
Notice of this public meeting was given by ordinary mail to all property owners within 120 meters, 400 feet of the subject property, by email to all the prescribed bodies on December 17th, 2021, posted at the subject property and posted on the Township of Georgian Bluffs website. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Township of Georgian Bluffs before the proposed zoning bylaw is adopted or passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the Township of Georgian Bluffs to the local planning appeal tribunal. The person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the tribunal unless, in the opinion of said tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to add the person or public body as a party.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Madam Planner, please give your report, please. Jen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the purpose of this application is to rezone the property from rural to R1, which is a general residential zone, to facilitate the creation of 3 residential lots in the settlement area of Balmy Beach. The proposed lot sizes meet the minimum lot area and frontage for partially serviced lots in the R1 general residential zone. So this report was presented to the Committee of Adjustment last night during the public hearing to consider the 3 severance applications. As this is the public meeting to consider the zoning amendment application, and in consideration that there may be members of the public present this evening who did not attend the Committee of Adjustment meeting last night, I will again present the report and note the comments received. The recording of the Committee of Adjustment meeting is available on the Township of Georgian Bluffs YouTube channel, and there's also a link to that channel on the Township's website at georgianbluffs.ca if anyone would like to view that meeting. So the staff planning report provides a review to assess compliance with applicable policy and locates the property within the settlement area designation under the county and township official plans. The Georgian Bluffs official plan further designates the lands as residential, and a portion of the property is within the Niagara Escarpment Commission designation, but it is not proposed to be rezoned. So as the report notes, provincial policy directs development to settlement areas, identifying that settlement areas shall be the focus of growth and development. So the applications to create 3 lots within the settlement area of Balmy Beach is supported by the provincial policy statement as well as both official plans. The proposed development is considered infill development and will be partially serviced with municipal water from the East Linton water system and individual on-site septic systems. The county OP requires that new development connect to existing services. So as the water main is located on the west side of Maple Ridge Road, directly in front of the proposed lots, the development, the lots would be required to connect, and water service, the installation of the water services will be overseen by the operations department. Through the circulation of the applications, we received several comments from area residents noting a lack of water pressure in their home. Staff reviewed the drawings for the water main and contacted Aqua, who is our looks after our water systems, to address the water pressure concerns. So Aqua did provide comments that for additional water services will not impact existing water pressure to the Maple Ridge subdivision properties. It may affect the available pressure to the first few properties situated south of the Indian Acres, Grey Road 1 area. However, the pressure reducing valve can be adjusted to accommodate that. There are no upgrades planned for the water main in this area within the next 5 years. The Conservation Authority reviews the proposed applications in their review of impacts to natural heritage features on behalf of the township and supports the mitigation measures that are identified in the environmental impact study. They support those being guaranteed within a site plan agreement as well. Staff support this recommendation, and a site plan agreement can be drafted to include those measures. Staff would also support the recommendation for stormwater controls to be identified in that site plan agreement, and that the agreement be registered on title to the lands so that those stormwater controls are implemented, certified by the engineer that they have been implemented, and maintained by subsequent property owners. With the inclusion of the EIS mitigation measures and the stormwater management controls in a site plan agreement, the Conservation Authority conclude consistency with sections 2.1 and 2.2 of the provincial policy statement. The Conservation Authority are supportive of a 0-meter setback to the realigned EP zone, as no development areas include the appropriate setback allowances. The proposed lots identify suitable development envelopes outside of the hazard areas. The Conservation Authority conclude consistency with section 3.1 of the provincial policy statement. Excuse me. So the provincial policy statement encourages constructive, cooperative relationships through meaningful engagement with Indigenous communities to facilitate knowledge sharing in land use planning processes and to inform decision making. We received comments from the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation requesting the submission of an archaeological assessment. The applicant has been advised of the request and has confirmed that an archaeological assessment will be conducted. In the absence of that archaeological assessment, it cannot be determined that the applications are consistent with the Provincial Policy Statement 2020. In terms of a zoning review, the 3 proposed lots the lot sizes, frontage, and area meet the R1 zone provisions for partially serviced lots. The property was previously zoned planned development until it was rezoned when the new zoning bylaw came into effect. The zoning amendment is necessary to facilitate the severances by rezoning only that portion of the property within the settlement area boundary from the rural zone to a residential R1 and reducing the setback to the realigned EP zone to 0 meters. So this application was circulated to various agencies. The following comments were received. Bell Canada, Niagara Escarpment Commission had no concerns. The Conservation Authority noted no objections to the approval of the subject applications, provided the natural heritage and stormwater management are implemented through the appropriate planning tools. They note that consistency with sections 2.1, 2.2, and 3.1 of the provincial policy statement have been demonstrated. And Ontario Regulation 15106 does apply to the subject site, and permits will be required for any development or site alteration within the regulated area. They provided comments as an adjacent landowner. The property adjacent to the south of the proposal is the Indian Falls property owned by the Conservation Authority. We respectfully request that the southerly property boundary along the proposed Lot 1 be clearly delineated, and we request to receive a copy of any survey completed in this regard. The County Planning Department comments defer to positive comments being submitted by the NEC and GSCA. They specify that positive comments should be submitted from the CBO regarding Ontario Building Code requirements and long-term maintenance considerations for tertiary septic systems. That the mitigation measures recommended in the EIS are implemented as conditions of consent or through Conservation Authority development permit conditions. Mitigation measures should be taken to ensure that stormwater is managed on site, such as the installation of the recommended grass swale. The county has no further concerns with the subject application and requests notice of any decision rendered with respect to the application. The Risk Management Office notes the property is not located within a vulnerable source protection area where significant threat policies apply and have no further comment. The Saugeen Ojibwe Nation requested an archaeological assessment, noting that this area has extremely high archaeological potential, and SON will need to be notified when the archaeological assessment is initiated. We also did receive comments from the City of Owen Sound after the report submission deadline, and they requested copies of Conservation Authority comments, county comments, as well as the staff report. The notice of complete application was circulated to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject property, and we've received comments from the following. The complete submissions are attached for council's review. They're in the agenda package, and I'm merely providing a summary of the concerns noted, but I would refer you to their full comments. Ken and Norma Applin expressed concerns with the new residential development resulting in impacts to the natural environment, the condition of the roads, area water pressure, and drainage issues. Barb and Dave Carrier listed questions regarding on-site drainage, access to the farm field on the retained lot, limits on tree cutting, repair of damage to roads caused by truck traffic, and preservation of the creek. Peter and Catherine Kaufman provided comments in a 28-page document identifying concerns with services being water and septic, stormwater management, environmental impact, climate change, health, safety, and rural lifestyle of local residents, increased traffic into and out of the subdivision, Maple Ridge Road rehabilitation post-construction. They are in opposition to the applications. Laura Daniels expressed concerns related to surface water drainage and contamination of a spring-fed creek. Larry McLean and Jay Wigston expressed concern that the existing water infrastructure may not be able to accommodate the additional 4 connections. They are opposed to the applications if the infrastructure needs to be upgraded and the residents are billed for that upgrade. Aaron Murray expressed concern with the southern lot, but didn't specify the exact concern with that lot. Other concerns identified are related to the infrastructure required for the development. Sue and Chuck O'Reilly identified concerns with the fire hydrant adjacent to their property as it was decommissioned due to the water pressure, the impact of development on the road, the impact of development on the watercourse, drainage, and natural heritage features. Carol Parsons noted concerns related to the size of the proposed lots, the access to Lot 1, the impact of development on the road, drainage, aesthetics, and environmental impact. So at the public hearing last night, there were 4 oral presentations made to the Committee of Adjustment. The developers team will be providing written responses to the concerns raised by the residents, and the developers team was not able to attend this meeting tonight because of a scheduling conflict, and will be notified of any additional concerns raised this evening. Once the archaeological assessment has been entered into register and concerns have been addressed, an addendum report will then be presented to Council. So at this time, it is recommended that this report be received for information. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Planner. Welcome, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm late.
No problem. 3 members of the public registered with the clerk to provide comments in support of or in opposition to the application. Prior to welcoming our residents, please note that all comments received by Committee Adjustment on February 17th regarding consent application B11, B12, B1321 have been noted for the record. Prior to the township procedural bylaw, each resident will have 10 minutes to submit their comments and questions to Council, specifically related to zoning bylaw amendment application Z1721. Further, all written comments have been attached to this evening's agenda for Council's information. Therefore, all comments should only supplement said comments and present any new information applicable to the subject application. The clerk will provide you with a 1-minute warning should you need it. Prior to submitting your comments to the committee, please note your address for the record. The first resident I'll ask to speak is Mr. David Lawless. David, are you there, please? Go ahead. My dear. Okay, I'll move on then. Ms. Mary McInnes, are you here, please? Mary, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Actually, if it's Mary Innes, I'm not Mary McInnes, and I have no comment to make at this time.
I apologize for the mispronunciation.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, I'll move on with Peter and Miss Catherine Kaufman. I don't know who is going to give the presentation. Please go ahead.
Good evening. Can you hear us?
Hello. Yes, we can.
Great, thanks. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, elected councils, and Georgian Bluff staff. As it appears that most of the same people are on the call tonight as were on last night, and that the meeting minutes can be accessed by the YouTube channel. We won't go into our comments again, so you can all exhale. Many of the remarks that we made last night are also covered off in more detail in our written submission as well, so I think that's well documented. Tonight, we just want to list for the record our asks from last night and focus on our conversation on the planned development zoning that came to our attention for the very first time on the call yesterday. So we're laymen in this whole process, but we understand that the 4 tests of a minor variance are: does it conform with the official plan? 2, does it conform with the zoning bylaw? 3, is it minor? And 4, is it desirable? So to ensure that this application conforms with the official plan and the provincial policy statement, in addition to the archaeological assessment that is to be completed, our ask from last night and in our written submission are: 1, to have a peer review completed on the nitrate study and the computation for the reasons expressed last night and in our written submission. 2, to receive a report from Georgian Bluffs building officials that the tertiary septic system is to code for this intense development. 3, that a 3-season stormwater management study be completed to supplement the June data used so that all 4 seasons are represented due to the flooding and erosion concerns that have been expressed by the local residents. And 4, the mitigation strategy that was presented by the Ontario Clean Water Agency to increase the flow through the pressure reducing valve to get the valve open further be implemented today to see if this strategy is effective and alleviates the water pressure concerns that the local residents are facing today before more development is allowed. Again, we feel these studies to date are deficient and we still do not know enough about the impact any type of development may have on the residents. So further due diligence needs to be done to determine that this test 1 has been met. The township knows that there are water and flooding issues in this subdivision, as reported by the residents, that these studies aren't picking up. So there's a disconnect there that we think really needs to be further investigated. We all know that flood and erosion is a real thing for municipalities, and we're just simply trying to avoid an Alpha Street or Parkview Estates and the Eastern Bluffs of Harrison Park situation here. So with regards to tests 2 and 3, we learned last night that we're not even sure what the zoning is on this property. It is believed that the zoning is actually planned development and not RU. That the RU is a mapping error. So this is an important question that needs to be answered. Are we considering a minor variance from RU to R1, or are we considering a full zoning bylaw amendment from PD to R1? Last night we looked up the planned development zone under your bylaw when we got off the phone. We learned that this zoning permits uses that legally existed on the date of the passing of the 2020 zoning bylaw. No development is permitted in the PD zoning. Rather, any development in the future can only occur through a full zoning bylaw amendment, which we understand is a more intense process and involves different committees than the minor variance process. This also brings into question for us whether a property going from no use as of the passing of the 2020 zoning bylaw to new residential use is minor. Further, 3 units on a property that did not have any use does not seem minor to us. So going from PD to R1 to accommodate 3 residential lots does not seem minor in use or in the magnitude of the use. We would think the proposed 3 new residential lots would require a full bylaw amendment. With regards to the 4th test, is this desirable? We think our comments from last night and our submissions already address and cover off this test. We assert that the negative impact that this development would have on our property and the neighborhood should outweigh the technical planning tests. And at the very least, this application needs to be deferred until we have better studies and studies that represent all 4 seasons, along with the answer to what the current zoning is. We feel at this point there are just too many unknowns for a proper decision to be made. Once we have those studies and answers, it might even be prudent to have another public meeting once people have had an opportunity to review those further studies. That's all the further comments we had tonight. So we want to thank you again for your time and patience and listening to our concerns. This has a huge impact to us, so I think you can all tell we're very passionate about it. It will happen right in our front yard. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Catherine, for your comments. Madam Planner, did you have any comments?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to clarify for everyone here this evening, this is not an application to consider a minor variance. This is a zoning bylaw amendment. A minor variance, we do not assess a zoning amendment application the way we would do it, do a minor variance. So we don't look at the 4 tests of a minor variance for a zoning amendment. This application is to actually change the zoning. So they've applied for the correct application, and the zone would be changed from rural to residential. The fact that it used to be planned development is irrelevant because the application is to change the zoning to a residential one. And then just in fairness to the professionals that have submitted reports, there has been a lot of misinformation shared through these meetings. And in fairness to those professionals, prior to moving forward with a peer review, we would ask them to address the concerns that you've raised and to substantiate their position. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Planner. Please note the recommendation to council this evening is to receive the report and defer further consideration of the application pending completion of an archaeology assessment. All residents will be notified of further discussions regarding the application. I'll now call upon Dennis Radburn to make comments regarding the application. Please go ahead, Dennis. You're muted, Dennis.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really don't have an awful lot to add. I mean, I think we've heard the comments last evening and then again tonight. As Jennifer has outlined, our professionals will certainly respond to these questions and submit those so that they can be reviewed by council. In terms of the development that will occur here, there is only going to be detached single-family dwellings in accordance with the bylaw and the zoning. I can't believe that they won't be good quality homes. And I'd just like to thank the Georgian Bluff staff, Stephen Dolmer and Jennifer Burnett, for all the questions they've answered throughout this process, and our professionals and myself will undertake to get back and respond to all these issues. And thank you to council for considering this.
Thank you, Dennis. Are there any points raised by the applicant or members of the public that the committee wish to apply to? Does the council have any questions? Seeing none, I have a recommendation here that I'm going to read. Comments received from the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation requesting that the applicant submit an archaeology assessment. In the absence of an archaeological assessment consisting with the Provincial Policy Statement 2020 cannot be determined at this time. It is recommended that PL 2022-09 Public Meeting Report for Z1721, B1121, B1221, B1321 for Radbourne be received for information, and any decision on the application be deferred to a future date. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Thompson, second by Councillor Barfoot. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, a show of hands, all in favor? The motion is carried. Thank you, everybody. Now I'm going to move on to agenda. We have no delegations here tonight. We're now down to the consent agenda. Is there any member of council wish to pull any item on our consent agenda? Seeing none, the recommendation then is that the Council of Township of Georgian Bluffs adopt the consent agenda for information as circulated. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Colburn, second by Deputy Mayor Carlton. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, a show of hands, all in favor? The motion is carried. Correspondence, we have none. Committee reports. The first recommendation is that the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting held on February 9th, 2022 be adopted, including recommendation COW 2022-013 to COW 2022-014. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Pringle, second by Councillor Sullivan. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, a show of hands, all in favor? The motion is carried. We're down now to staff reports. We have none. Public question period, Madam Clerk, none. Okay. Bylaws, zoning bylaws, we have none. Other bylaws? I have one here. I'll read the recommendation. The bylaw 2022-010 being a bylaw to deem lands described as part 825 lot 5 and 6 in geographic township of Keppel are hereby deemed lots to be not to be lots on registered plan of subdivision for the purpose of section 50 of the Planning Act RSO 1990 as amended to be read a first, second, third time, finally pass, signed by the mayor and clerk, and sealed and seals the corporation and endorsed in the bylaw book. Someone to move to put it on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Thompson, second by Councillor Sullivan. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, a show of hands, all in favor? The motion is carried. We're now down to our next recommendation. The bylaw 2022-012 being a bylaw to approve the imposition and collection of water rates for water systems owned and operated by the towns of Georgian Bluffs. Be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and the clerk, seals and seals the corporation, and endorsed in the bylaw book. Someone to move to put it on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Pringle, second by Deputy Mayor Carlton. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, a show of hands, all in favor of the motion? The motion is carried. We know unfinished business. We know new business. Does any council member have any notice of motions I want to bring forward? Seeing none? So I'm now going to read the motion to go in closed session. The council move in closed session at 5:45 p.m. in the council chambers with CAO, Director of Operations, Director of Corporate Services, clerk remaining in the room to discuss 1, labor relations or employee negotiation. Someone to move to put it on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Barfoot, second by Councillor Thompson. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, we are now in closed session. The motion carried. We are now closed session. Please go out and go into your closed session package, please. And I think this is the most sensible thing to do. I'm quite sure, Cynthia, you'll probably have a conversation.
Brian, we're all back from closed session. If you can please re-enable the live stream.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We are now back in open session. Council moved into closed session to discuss matters under closed section exemption D of section 239 of the Municipal Act. As a result of closed discussions, direction was provided to staff. I now have a confirming bylaw. The bylaw number 2022-013 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council on February 16th, 2022 be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor, clerk, seals the seals of the corporation, and endorsed in the bylaw book. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Pringle, second by Councillor Thompson. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, a show of hands, all in favor? The motion is carried. Our next meeting is March the 9th at 5 o'clock. And since we have no other business here tonight, I'll ask for a motion of adjournment. Moved by Councillor Sullivan, second by Councillor Colburn. There's no other discussion. Show of hands, all in favor? The motion is carried. We're now adjourned. Thank you, everybody.